I've always been a Harrow girl, born and raised in a town so small that every face was familiar and secrets didn't last long. After high school, I ventured away to college, and not long after graduation, I dove straight into the retail world. But it wasn't just any retail, it was lingerie. I'd always had a passion for it, and it drove me to work hard, eventually turning that passion into a business of my own. Over the years, I built a small empire, everything from cozy shops to upscale boutiques. Work became my life, and I thrived. But something was missing. Then Henry walked in. It started innocently enough. A ping on my phone, a friend request from a man in a sharp suit and an even sharper gaze. His profile picture intrigued me enough to click accept. A lawyer, as it turned out, explaining the sharp suit. Our first message was brief, but there was something about it that sparked my curiosity. Over the next few weeks, his texts, filled with wit and humor, became the highlight of my days. He made me laugh, even after the longest, hardest work days. Our conversations flowed seamlessly, anything from silly jokes to deeper, more meaningful discussions. We clicked in a way I hadn't expected. Eventually, he suggested we meet, a simple coffee, a chance to see if the connection was as real in person. We met at my favorite local cafe, known for its strong brew and quiet ambience. Henry, in person, was even more impressive than his polished profile. We talked for hours, about life, our careers, dreams, everything. He listened to me with such genuine interest, and I did the same for him. After a year of getting to know each other, he took the plunge. One cold evening, as I was locking up one of my stores, Henry showed up unexpectedly, his breath misting in the frigid air. He nervously handed me a small, elegant box. "ISA," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "We've been good together, haven't we? I think it's time we make it official." My heart raced. He flashed that crooked smile I loved so much and asked the question that made my world spin. "Will you marry me?" Let's stop dancing around it. "I want you with me, forever." I stood there, keys still in hand, my mind racing. Marriage? Was I ready? But as I looked into his eyes, filled with sincerity, something clicked. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." His face softened with relief, but then his expression shifted. "There's something else," he said, his voice now serious. He pulled out a stack of papers from his briefcase. "A prenup. ISA. I need you to sign one." The word hit me like a cold wave. A prenup? Really? ISA. It's not about trust, it's about practicality. My career, I've seen too many messy divorces. This is protection for both of us. I frowned, confused and slightly alarmed. What kind of protection are we talking about? He explained it simply. If either of us cheats, we forfeit our assets. It's fair, straightforward. You know I'd never betray you. ISA. This is just to cover our bases. I paused, trying to digest everything. It wasn't the romantic moment I'd imagined. But with Henry, I'd come to expect the unexpected. I looked at the papers, then back at him. He was still waiting, his face earnest. "I'll consider it," I said finally, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But just to be clear, Henry, I don't plan on ever giving you a reason to use this against me. That's all I'm asking," he said, his face relaxing into a smile. We celebrated that night at a quiet restaurant, the mood lightened by the ambience and Henry's charm. Later, as we walked under the stars, he pulled me close. "You know I love you, right? No document can change that." "I know," I said, resting my head on his shoulder. "I love you too. Let's just make sure this prenup doesn't come between us, okay?" "I promise, it won't." A few days later, after consulting with my lawyer, I signed the prenup. It felt strange, signing a document that seemed to focus more on an end than a beginning. But love is a gamble, and I was all in, trusting that Henry was worth it. For a while, everything was perfect. We were the couple everyone admired, laughing, sharing little moments at gatherings. But as the months went on, subtle shifts began to happen. Something was off. One day, while we were out shopping, I found myself chatting with a sales manager at a perfume store. We were discussing scents when Henry, who had been quiet, suddenly grew tense. As we walked away from the store, he stopped me. "Who was that?" "Just the sales guy," I said, surprised by his sudden coldness. "I was asking about perfumes." "Why?" His eyes narrowed. "You seemed really into him," he muttered, accusing me without reason. I stopped, bewildered. "Are you serious, Henry? We were talking about perfumes. What's going on?" "Forget it," he snapped, brushing off the conversation. That incident marked the beginning of a troubling pattern. He grew increasingly jealous, cold, and distant. If I talked to another man, even about something harmless, he'd sulk, throw sarcastic remarks, or make strange comments. At home, he became withdrawn, often glued to his phone or laptop, leaving me to dine alone. The tension was unbearable, so I confronted him one night. "Henry, we need to talk," I said, closing his laptop. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm under so much pressure at work, and when I see you laughing with other men, it gets to me. It feels like you don't respect us." We argued for what felt like hours, and it only escalated when I heard rumors that Henry had been telling people I was flirting with others. "Is it true?" I demanded. "You've been telling people I'm flirting with other guys?" He tried to explain, but it was clear his jealousy had clouded his judgment. "I might have said something, but it's because I see how they look at you." "How dare you?" I yelled. "You're supposed to have my back, not tear me down." Things cooled for a while, but a few days later, I found a note from Henry on the kitchen counter. "Let's try again. Meet me at the Grand View Hotel, room 181, at 7:10 p.m. tonight." It was an unexpected gesture. Maybe he wanted to fix things. With a mix of apprehension and hope, I agreed. That evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When I arrived, Henry was already waiting. As soon as I stepped inside, he stormed toward me. "The prodigal wife finally shows up," he sneered. "Henry, listen to me," I pleaded. "Something's happened. I need to explain." But he wasn't hearing any of it. With a dramatic flourish, he slammed a set of photographs onto the table. "Explain these," he demanded. I picked them up, my heart sinking. There I was in a hotel room, with a man I didn't recognize, in a compromising position. My stomach churned. "Henry, I swear I don't know this man. I didn't do this," I stammered, panic rising. He laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "A mistake? Or were you just careless? Marrying you was my real mistake," he spat. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I steadied myself. "You have to believe me, Henry, I didn't do this." His voice was venomous. "Why should I believe you? You're nothing but a liar and a cheater. And I will make sure you don't get a penny from me. I'm taking this to court, I'll take everything." Henry spat, his words like daggers. He grabbed his pre-packed suitcase, his face contorted with anger, and stormed out, slamming the door with such force that the sound reverberated through the empty house. Stunned and broken, I collapsed onto the sofa, the weight of his betrayal crashing over me. My body trembled with uncontrollable sobs, while a sharp, pulsating pain throbbed in my head. It wasn't just a headache, it felt as if a thick fog had descended over my mind, clouding my thoughts and leaving the events of the night feeling like a blur. And then, the realization hit me: the wine. I'd only had a single glass, but the dizziness and blackout were inexplicable, far too intense for such a small amount. Panicked and desperate for answers, I picked up the phone and dialed Riley, a nurse and close friend. "Riley, something's wrong. I had one glass of wine, and everything went black. I woke up hours later, and now Henry has these photos. It doesn't make sense," I stammered, the words tumbling out in a rush. After a moment's silence, Riley responded with concern. It sounds like you were drugged. You need to get to a hospital or lab right now. Tell them everything, especially about the wine and what you're feeling." I was in a daze as I drove to the lab, my mind reeling, trying to piece together the fragments of the evening. The technician at the lab took several vials of blood for testing, but the weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air. Days later, a letter from Henry arrived. My hands shook as I opened it, the paper crinkling in my grip. The letter was a cold, formal declaration. Henry was suing me for infidelity, citing our prenuptial agreement as the foundation for stripping me of everything. The trial was set for a month from now. I called Jacob, my lawyer, my voice shaky with panic. "Come to my office, we need to strategize," he said, offering a thread of reassurance amid the chaos. I drove to his office, my mind swirling with countless worst-case scenarios. As I pulled into the parking lot, a sense of determination began to settle in. I had to fight back. At Jacob's office, we quickly began strategizing, but before long, I saw Henry walking with a young man, the same one from the photographs he had shown me. Instinctively, I reached for my phone and began recording. I watched as Henry handed the young man an envelope. which he quickly tucked away inside his jacket. A rush of adrenaline surged through me. This could be the key to everything. I showed Jacob the video, and his reaction was immediate. His eyes widened in alarm as he watched the exchange. "This is important, ISA. This could be huge. We need to get a senior investigator involved," Jacob said, his voice serious. Jacob called Wyatt, an experienced investigator, and Wyatt agreed to take the case. He wasted no time tracking down the young man and investigating his background. Within days, Wyatt called us to his office with an update. "I spoke to the guy," Wyatt began, his voice grave. "Turns out, he's an actor who was hired by Henry to impersonate someone close to you. He even admitted that Henry orchestrated everything, including drugging you during your conversation." An email pinged on my phone. It was the result of my blood test. My heart skipped a beat as I read the attachment. The test showed the presence of a potent sedative. My stomach twisted. Wyatt's story was right. I handed my phone to Jacob, who read the results and then met my gaze with a determined expression. "This is the evidence we need, ISA. We can use this to not only defend you but also confront Henry," he said. He advised we keep everything confidential until the court date, hoping to catch Henry off guard. A week passed, and I found myself back at my lingerie store, trying to distract myself from the upcoming trial. It was just another afternoon when Henry appeared, introducing me to Nova, his new fiancée. He gleamed with false pride as he boasted about their engagement. His smile, however, didn't reach his eyes. Nova, wide-eyed and unsure, looked at me with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Henry didn't hold back, claiming he would soon take ownership of my store. Nova watched the exchange with evident doubt. As much as I wanted to warn her, I recalled Jacob's advice to remain silent until the hearing. Instead, I simply offered a thin, restrained smile and replied, "We'll see what the judge decides, Henry." The court date arrived sooner than I'd expected. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension as Henry, representing himself, confidently adjusted his tie and prepared to make his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady and assured, "today you will witness the true character of a woman. ISA has not only broken our vows but has gone to great lengths to deceive me and undermine the integrity of our marriage." He presented the photographs, one by one, projecting them onto the screen behind him. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the images from the hotel room flashed before the audience. Henry continued, claiming that these photographs confirmed his worst fears about his wife's infidelity. "For months, I endured the agony of suspecting ISA's betrayal," he said, his voice tinged with emotion. "And now, these photographs lay bare the truth." He paused for dramatic effect, his gaze fixed on me as he stood before the court. He portrayed me as the manipulative party, a deceitful woman who had broken the trust of their marriage. His speech was calculated, each word carefully chosen to sway the court's opinion. But Jacob, my lawyer, stood firm, offering a calm counterpoint. He had the evidence to expose Henry's lies and present a different narrative. At that moment, the actor Henry had hired entered the courtroom, causing a stir. Jacob invited him to testify, and the young man, looking nervous, confessed that he had been hired by Henry to play a part in the deception. Just as the courtroom settled, Jacob presented my blood test results, confirming that I had been drugged. The revelation was met with shocked gasps from the audience. "This is no accident," Jacob said, his voice stern. "ISA was incapacitated against her will. This man, Henry, orchestrated the entire thing." The room was electric with disbelief. Jacob went on to show evidence from Henry's previous marriages, revealing a disturbing pattern of manipulation and deceit, all designed to line his pockets at the expense of his wives. When Jacob finished, he made a final request. Not only should the fraudulent claims against ISA be dismissed, but she deserves fair compensation for the pain and suffering she's endured. The judge took a moment to deliberate, and then, with a calm but decisive voice, announced her verdict. The prenuptial agreement was voided, and ISA was entitled to damages. The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. Tears welled in my eyes, not just from the victory, but from the sense of vindication that followed. Henry's face drained of color. His fiancée, Nova, rushed out of the courtroom, only to return moments later, thanking me for revealing the truth. She left Henry right then and there. News of the trial spread like wildfire. Henry's reputation took a nosedive, his law license revoked. His ex-wives, inspired by the revelations, sued him, exposing a history of deceit that left him financially and socially bankrupt. As I locked up my office one evening, watching the sunset cast long shadows across the floor, I reflected on everything I had endured. The fight had been long and painful, but it was also a testament to resilience, and to the pursuit of justice.